Peace be upon you, and welcome to a new episode. On Tuesday, June 23rd, 2020, exactly at 1:37 p.m. in the village of Meet Antar, Talca district, Dakalia Governorate, there was a 9-month-old infant named Ali Hussein Mohammed Abdullah Hamed. He was crying in a terrifying, continuous way, and the sound coming from his chest felt like a siren. All the neighbors in the building and the street heard him from inside an apartment on the second floor of a 4-story family building owned by Mohammed Abdullah Hamed, the father of the husband Hussein Mohammed. Hussein's younger brother, named Ahmed, quickly went up the stairs. He was going to ask his brother Hussein for money to buy spare parts for his car. He heard the crying coming from his brother's apartment and knocked once, twice, 3 times. But there was no response at all. He pushed the door and found it unlocked. He entered quickly and found the baby Ali thrown on the floor in the living room next to a bed in the bedroom. And in the same room, he found the body of a 21-year-old woman, completely naked, with severe strangulation marks around her neck, very clear blue lines, bruises on the face, neck, and shoulders, dried blood under both fingernails, and strange short black hairs clenched in both of her hands. This woman was Eman Adel Hassan Abdo, a third-year student at the Faculty of Arts French Department, Mansoura University. She had been married for 2 years and 7 months and had only one child. And this was the first moment in one of the ugliest, filthiest, most calculated, brutal, vile and treacherous crimes in the history of Egypt, a crime that shook Egyptian and Arab conscience and made millions follow every court session up to the very last breath at the gallows. Before we begin the story, don't forget to like and share the episode so it reaches as many people as possible, and wait for me every Saturday, Monday, and Wednesday for a new episode. Without going into too many details, let's dive deep into our story. We need to go far back in time to understand how we reached this day. Eman Adel was born on March 15th, 1999 in the village of Meet Antar. She was a very calm, polite, and ambitious girl from a simple family. Her father, Adel Hassan, was a humble farmer who worked the land, and her mother Fatma was a housewife. Her only brother Ahmed was 2 years younger than her and was in his senior year of high school at the time. No one in the entire village could ever speak about her except with praise. She was always top of her class in school and at university. She told her friends she wanted to complete her master's and PhD in French and become a university lecturer. She dreamed of traveling to France to study there. She used to write down her dreams in a notebook every day and read books by Victor Hugo, Albert Camus, and Jean-Paul Sartre, and memorize poems by Charles Baudelaire. She loved French culture deeply and wrote short essays in French, dreaming of translating novels one day. On the other side, there was a young man named Hussein Mohammed Abdullah Hamed, born on December 28, 1998, meaning he was 21 at the time of the crime. He was originally Iraqi. His father, Mohammed Abdullah, returned from Iraq on March 3, 2014, after 25 years of absence, bringing a lot of money with him. He bought a large piece of land in Meet Antar, built a 4-story family building, and opened a large women's clothing store on Al-Gaish Street in Mansoura. Hussein was very handsome, white skin, hazel eyes, 180 centimeters tall, and financially well off. He was known in the village for having many relationships for years and enjoyed nightlife, going out, and being with many girls. The marriage took place on Friday, November 17, 2017. Hussein proposed to Eman after major mediation efforts by village elders and his father, who wanted to strengthen ties with respected families. Eman saw Hussein as a good-looking man, successful in his work, and financially comfortable, not just because of his own business, but because his family had various investments both in Egypt and Iraq. The wedding was very simple, held in a small hall in the village, and life started calmly. When Eman married Hussein, she was still a university student, and her family suggested she continue her education after marriage. She did exactly that and fulfilled all her responsibilities as a wife very well. Until Sunday, September 15th, 2019, when Eman gave birth to her only son, Ali, in a private hospital in Mansoura. And from that moment, problems began to grow day after day. Hussein was used to a completely different lifestyle. He wanted his wife to be open-minded and fulfill the desires he was accustomed to from his previous relationships. He demanded strange and inappropriate things from Eman. She was veiled, religious, focused on her child and her studies, and refused anything that went against her principles. Hussein began pressuring her more and threatened her with divorce, but the biggest obstacle was his parents. They loved Eman deeply and saw her as a righteous woman. They told him, "If you divorce her, you'll be wrong. She's 1,000,000 times better than you." In early 2020, Hussein met another girl in the village. She was willing to fulfill everything he wanted and agreed to marry him secretly under an urfi, unregistered contract, but only on the condition that he officially divorce Eman. Hussein decided to go through with it, but the big question was, how could he divorce her when his family completely refused? And how could he divorce her without paying her legal rights, which amounted to around £300,000, dowry balance £300,000, jewelry, and alimony, about $6,500? Hussein originally demanded from Eman certain acts that completely contradicted her upbringing, religion, and values. These were the main reasons behind the fights and beatings that went on for more than a year and a half. The actions mentioned in the investigation, from the testimony of her brother Eman Adel and from Hussein's own statements during questioning. He demanded sexual relations in abnormal ways and positions. The prosecution described them as deviant practices and against natural instinct, and Eman completely rejected them. He used to ask her to let him film them during intercourse, video or photos, while she was naked. He swore it would be just for himself, but she completely refused. He asked her to allow him to bring other girls home, or at least participate in threesomes. Hussein mentioned this himself in the investigations and said that the other girl he was attached to agreed to this. He asked her to go out with him to cafes and nightclubs in Mansoura and dance in front of him and other people, and he would beat her when she refused. Every time Eman refused, he would hit her, insult her, or threaten her with divorce. In the end, when he realized she would never abandon her principles, he decided to execute a scandal plan to divorce her while appearing innocent in front of his family and society. This is where the satanic planning began. Hussein spent weeks thinking until he came up with an idea no human mind could conceive. He wanted to expose her in front of everyone, making her appear as if she were involved with another man. At that point, it would become an honor case. He could immediately divorce her, and no one would blame him, and she wouldn't receive any money from her legal rights. The initial plan was as follows. He would arrange for a trusted person to enter the apartment while he was away. That person would sexually assault Eman and film her in a compromising position. Hussein would then return suddenly, discover the betrayal in front of neighbors and family, create a public scandal, and divorce her immediately without giving her any rights. The second step was choosing the right person. Hussein monitored all his workers at the shop until he chose a man named Ahmed Reda El Shahat, known as Ahmed El Aghalati, a 33-year-old employee who had worked for him for 4 years, married with 4 children, in severe financial difficulty and drowning in debt. Hussein exploited Ahmed's financial desperation and presented the idea. At first, Ahmed was shocked and asked, "Are you serious?" Hussein told him he'd give him 200,000 Egyptian pounds in cash, about $4,000. Ahmed stayed silent for a few seconds, then agreed. The final deal was that Hussein would pay 25,000 upfront and the rest after the plan was executed. Hussein explained the plan to him in full detail from start to finish and assured him the mission was easy and no one would suspect them and that the money would change his life entirely. Ahmed agreed, took the first payment, and began preparing for execution. Hussein would send him messages every day, reminding him of the details and reassuring him that everything would go like clockwork, and that after it was done, he could leave the entire country if he wanted and start a new life with the money. The execution plan was as follows. Hussein would disable all surveillance cameras in the house, so there would be no evidence. Ahmed would buy a full niqab and black abaya, tailored exactly to his size to disguise himself so no one could recognize him. Hussein would leave the apartment door unlocked or leave the key in the door to make entry easy. Hussein would leave for work in the morning as usual. Ahmed would enter exactly half an hour after Hussein left. Ahmed would assault Eman and film her, then call Hussein immediately, and Hussein would return and stage the scandal. Hussein emphasized that Ahmed must call him while still inside the apartment so he could arrive at the perfect moment, gather neighbors and family, and prove the betrayal with evidence. He added that if Eman resisted, Ahmed should control her in any way necessary. But there was originally no intention to kill her. The plan was designed to scandalize her, not kill her. Hussein repeated this every day in messages and calls until Ahmed was fully convinced that the mission was simple and the money guaranteed. On Monday, June 22, 2020, at 11 a.m., exactly 1 day before the crime, Ahmed El Aghalati went to a store that specializes in selling clothing for veiled women on El Gaish Street in Mansoura. He bought a black abaya and a full niqab and told the shop owner that they were for his wife and that she was roughly the same size. Then he went to a well-known tailor and had the abaya shortened precisely to his measurements. In front of both the tailor and the shop owner, he was on the phone with Hussein and told him, "I got everything and finished." Hussein was very pleased and assured him that the plan would be carried out the next day, and that he should focus on filming properly so the evidence would be strong. He sent him a message saying, "Don't worry, everything is under control, the money is ready, just make sure you film properly." On Tuesday, June 23, 2020, Hussein woke up at 7:14 a.m. as usual. He left the house at 12:30 p.m. and told Eman he was going to the shop. Eman was studying her term research papers with her laptop open next to her, and her son Ali was playing nearby. Exactly half an hour later, around 1 p.m., Ahmed El Aghalati arrived at the building wearing the niqab and black abaya. He entered the apartment through the door. Eman saw him and immediately realized he was a man. She tried to scream, but he pushed her violently to the ground, covered her mouth with his right hand, and strangled her with his left. Eman resisted with all her strength. She scratched him with her nails and tore some of his hair out, but he was much bigger and stronger. In less than 5 minutes, Eman was dead. Ahmed stripped her and sexually assaulted her twice while she was dead. Then he fled quickly, locked the door, and called Hussein, telling him that he killed her because she resisted strongly. Hussein lost his mind and told him, "I only wanted a scandal, not murder." Ahmed told him to report it to the police and say he came back and found his wife like that. About an hour later, Hussein's brother heard the child Ali crying, so he entered the apartment, found the body, and immediately called the police. Hussein arrived home crying and screaming, and no one suspected him at all. The investigation began the same day. The police found no signs of forced entry on the door or windows, nothing was stolen, but there were clear signs of manual strangulation, bruises, blood under the nails, and foreign hair. All the apartment cameras were disabled. The security team began taking statements from family and neighbors, all of whom confirmed that Eman was a very respectable woman. The investigation moved to the forensic lab, where fingerprints and samples were collected from every part of the apartment. The forensic report arrived within 48 hours, confirming that the cause of death was severe manual strangulation leading to respiratory and circulatory failure, and that the sexual assault occurred immediately after death. Samples were taken from under her fingernails and from the body for DNA analysis. The police reviewed surrounding street cameras and found a person wearing a niqab and black abaya entering the building at 1 p.m. and leaving at 1:15 p.m. The recordings were sent to forensic analysis, and the report confirmed 100% that it was a man based on walking patterns and body structure. At the same time, another team searched all stores selling niqab clothing in Mansoura and Talca, eventually locating the shop owner who sold Ahmed El Aghalati the niqab and abaya on June 22nd. The owner confirmed all details and handed over security footage. Police also reached the tailor who shortened the abaya, and he confirmed that Ahmed was on the phone saying, "I finished everything." Ahmed El Aghalati was arrested at home, and once confronted with the footage and witnesses, he confessed immediately to everything and said that Hussein Mohammed was the one who incited him to commit the crime. He explained how Hussein offered him money, how they planned everything, how he killed her when she resisted, how he assaulted her after death, and that Hussein knew every detail. Police examined the phones of Hussein and Ahmed and found 127 calls and 411 messages between them in the month before the crime and within 72 hours after it. From the first day, Hussein Mohammed was arrested. The same day at the prosecution office, he was confronted with all the evidence: Ahmed's detailed confession, camera recordings, and the DNA report that matched 100%. Hussein confessed and said, "I wanted to disgrace her, not kill her," and explained all the details of the plan from day one: how he offered the money to Ahmed, how they prepared the niqab and abaya, how he disabled the cameras, left the door slightly open, and how they agreed that Ahmed would call him from inside so he could arrive and expose her. The case was transferred to the Mansoura Criminal Court. The sessions continued for 19 months, during which all evidence was presented, from cameras to DNA, recorded confessions, phone messages, and testimonies from more than 87 witnesses, all of whom said in court that Eman died defending her honor. On June 22, 2021, exactly 1 year after the crime, the initial verdict was issued: execution by hanging for Ahmed Reda El Shahat, the perpetrator, known as Ahmed El Aghalati, and Hussein Mohammed Abdullah Hamed, the husband, instigator, and planner. An appeal was filed before the Court of Cassation. The case lasted 3 years and 4 months until November 3, 2024, when the court upheld the ruling and rejected the appeal. On November 17, 2025, the execution was carried out by hanging for both men in Gamasa prison. Eman Adel Hassan Abdo defended her honor until her last breath. Her son Ali is now 7 years old, growing up without his mother. Her family says that God granted her justice in this life before the next. This story proves that no matter how long injustice lasts, the truth eventually prevails. May God have mercy on Eman Adel and grant her a place in his highest paradise, and grant patience to her family. And with that, today's episode is over. If this is your first time on the channel, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss anything new. Wait for me in the next episode. Goodbye.